Greek stocks tumble today as the stalemate over the country's debt intensifies. In his first major speech to Parliament on Sunday, the country's new Prime Minister, Alexis Tsipras, defiantly declared that he is done with the European and IMF bailout program and its harsh austerity, when the current deal runs out in just over 2 weeks. He promised to raise the minimum wage and hire back government employees that he says were illegally fired under austerity. But he didn't make clear how he will replace the bailout's funds. Arrayed against Greece are European heavyweights, led by Germany, which insists that Greece must push on with cost-cutting and reform. Greece's finance minister, Giannis Varoufakis, who was tireless and wearing a leather jacket, inspired quite a following as he took his agenda on a whirlwind tour of Europe last week. But after 2 weeks in office, the gap between image and policy is still wide. And that much was clear when Varoufakis met with his German counterpart.
We agree to disagree.
As Dr. Schäuble said, we didn't reach an agreement. It was never on the cards that we would. We didn't even agree to disagree from where I'm standing.
Now, European finance ministers meet again this week, and Giannis Varoufakis joins me live from Athens. Minister Varoufakis, welcome back to our program.
Thank you so much.
It's good to see you. Now, you've heard that they are talking tough, and you are equally determined to stand tough. The ECB says it will no longer recognize your bonds as collateral. Doesn't that reduce a huge stream of revenue in addition to rejecting bailout funds, which is another huge stream of revenue?
Let's separate the two issues. The ECB has replaced one form of refinancing with another. It was a move that has happened before without any major repercussions. Personally, I think that it was too premature, that move, but nevertheless, it's not that significant in the scheme of things. Secondly, the question of the bailouts. This government was, Christian, elected in order to challenge the very logic of the bailouts which began in 2010. Christian, what happened in 2010 was the Greek state became insolvent. And the great and the good in Europe, in their great wisdom and infinite wisdom, I should say, decided to treat this insolvency problem as if it was a problem of liquidity. So they dumped the largest loan in human history on the weakest of shoulders, and on condition that we squeeze our income by almost a quarter. Now, a bankruptcy lawyer in New York, actually a 10-year-old child, would tell you that that can't end well. So it's not that we are refusing anything. We're not playing hardball, at least from our part. All we want to do is to have a rational discussion that this kind of combination of great loans to the insolvent on condition that we should shrink our income further, this must end. So because it makes no sense for anyone.
Let me take your metaphor. You talked about a 10-year-old child with a vague knowledge of math. So I want to ask you about math, because we've just talked about huge revenue losses, given these two issues, plus the idea of raising the minimum wage, plus the idea of hiring back all sorts of government workers. The math doesn't add up. I mean, Angela, you haven't said how you're going to bridge this gap. How will you?
Okay, let's start from various myths, which I'm sure have come to you through a distorted lens. Take the question about the issue of rehirings. What we have committed to do, Christian, and let's be clear on this, is to rehire within the next year 1%, just one tiny little miserable percent of those who lost their jobs, the hundreds of thousands that lost their jobs during the last 5 years. And who are these people that we're going to rehire? School guards and people who were dismissed by legal means that are highly suspect. This is not worth even discussing. Remember, 1% of the losses of jobs are going to be restituted in this way. On the question of where we get the money from, look, Greece, over the last 5 years, because of the unenforceability of this illogical program that has been applied to Greece over the last 5 years, has been in this situation, let's say, in limbo between different agreements with our creditors for a number of times. I mean, let me give an example, the summer of 2012. Before that, it was in 2011. There have been these standoffs between the Greek authorities and our creditors. And always there was some formula for finding a few months during which to achieve some kind of agreement. Mm-hmm. What this government is doing is something that has never tried before, Christian, and that is to say, you know, we were like drug addicts, and we always cared about the next dose. The next dose was the next loan tranche. We don't want the next dose. We don't care about the next loan tranche when our debt is unsustainable. So we want to get rid of the addiction.
So let me ask you...
We just want to get rid of the addiction.
All right, you want to get rid of the addiction, but how do you get better terms for your recovery, so to speak, to carry on your metaphor? And people say these are the most generous terms that Greece has had for a long, long time. And today in Washington, Angela Merkel basically said, I think what counts is what Greece will put on the table. I've always said, I'll wait for Greece to come with a sustainable process or proposal, and then we'll talk about it. So what is your sustainable proposal?
I don't think we have time for me to go through the details of what we're going to table on Wednesday, but I'm very glad that Chancellor Merkel has invited us to do that, because this is the only thing we care about. All we're asking for, Christian, from our European partners is an opportunity to table our proposals and to be given a short space of time, a few weeks, no more, during which to deliberate with them. But, you know, more precisely, let me say this. Our government is all about reforming Greece deeply so that we never go back to where we were in 2009, 2010. But we can't do that when we are in a debt deflationary trap. Remember, Greece has 175% of debt as a proportion of GDP. And at the same time, we have a broken banking system. It doesn't work as a credit mechanism. We have negative investment, and we have a commitment. This is a commitment undertaken by previous governments. This is part of our bailout program, that we should produce almost 5% of primary surpluses every year. This is like trying to extract more milk from a sick cow by whipping it. Yeah. You will kill it. You will not get more milk out of it. Mm-hmm. So in order for us to repay our debts and to grow, we need more fiscal space. We need a primary surplus. We are committed to having balanced budgets and indeed for having a primary surplus.
So obviously,
of something like 1.5%.
Obviously, many people want to know
yes.
how you will become more competitive. And you talk about raising, I know it's a small percentage, but nonetheless, raising minimum wage. But I just do want to ask you about leaving the Eurozone. You have said it will cause a disaster for the rest of the Eurozone. Other countries
yes,
seem
indeed.
to be making contingencies. My question to you is, do you not fear that there'll be a panic in Greece, that people will try to, you know, do a run on the banks? Are you going to forbid them from taking their money out? What are you going to do to prevent a panic and make your economic situation worse if you do, in fact, leave?
We're not going to leave. Grexit, Greece's exit from the Eurozone, is not anywhere near our thinking process. We consider ourselves to be part of the Eurozone. Whatever criticisms one may have of the Eurozone, once you are in it, you should stick with it. Mario Draghi in Helsinki in November put it succinctly and brilliantly when he said that for the euro to succeed anywhere, it must succeed everywhere. And those who are toying with the idea of jettisoning or amputating Greece from the Eurozone are being extremely reckless, because this is an experiment that has never happened before. Those who believe that they can amputate Greece and keep the Eurozone intact, they have absolutely no evidence for that. It's never been tried. And we should not be playing around with people's lives with a prospect of having a gradual fragmentation of the Eurozone, because the awful centrifugal forces that are going to be unleashed may very well tear the whole of Europe apart. Mm. And the world economy, the American economy, the Chinese economy, the last thing they need is this kind of turbulence coming from Europe at a time when everybody is struggling to recover from the 2008 debacle.
Minister Giannis Varoufakis, we'll look forward to the talks later this week and see that hand being played. Thank you very much indeed for joining me tonight.